First off, I want to thank everyone for being here today, and I'm sure everybody is wondering what TFY stands for. So TFY stands for The Forgotten Youth. The Forgotten Youth is something that is near and dear to my heart. I have been developing it for years on end, and now I'm ready for it to explode. So a little bit about me. I grew up in the foster system, and so growing up, you know, when you're placed into a group home, in particular the group home that I was in, you're only allowed to have 3 shirts and 2 pairs of pants. So just imagine a little curly-haired, pigtailed girl going to school, facing trauma, adversity, and trials that many people don't have to experience in their entire lifetime. Then they get put into a group home where they're only allowed 3 shirts and 2 pairs of pants. So you're adding, on top of trauma, on top of being ripped from your home, put in an unknown place with unknown faces, you're adding bullying to the list. Because, face it or not, it's undoubtable that little girls, you know, they notice these type of things. They notice when you're wearing the same clothes over and over again. So one of the things that I love to say about foster youth is that we're resilient. You know, we come up with coping mechanisms from such an early age. We develop skills, problem-solving skills, that, you know, it takes many people years of their lifetime to gain that wisdom and that knowledge. So I jumped on board, and my problem-solving skill was I gathered all the girls and I said, all right, let's get to work. So I said, everybody throw your clothes into a pile. And everyone kind of looked at me weird, like, no, these, you know, because we're protective at this point. You know, we don't have much. So it's like, what do you mean throw our clothes in a pile? So eventually I worked everybody up and we all threw our clothes in a pile. And I was like, all right, we're gonna mix match. We're not gonna go to school wearing the same thing twice, ever again. And so this kind of grew my passion for fashion. I started clothing everybody. I started styling everybody, saying, all right, now you wore that last week, let's switch it up. Let's switch you and you know, kind of delegating. But that problem-solving skill was just a Band-Aid solution, right? It was still an issue. Now, moving forward, you grow, you get older, and in the foster system, where do they take you to shop? Thrift stores. They're very underfunded, you know, and so that developed my love for thrifting. When it was time, and I grew out of my 3 shirts and 2 pairs of pants, finally, and I was introduced to this new world of thrifting. It was just such an experience, because walking through the aisles and passing by each and every one of these items like clothing, you start to think, they were once cared for and now they're forgotten. I resonated so much with those clothes because I too was once cared for and now was forgotten. And so this developed the platform and laid the foundation for the Forgotten Youth, for TFY Apparel. Because at the end of the day, there is an issue, there is a problem, and there's awareness that needs to come about. My way of doing that is doing what I love, thrifting, while shredding some, you know, awareness through my apparel. And I hope that every single one of you, when you take your items home today, that every time you look at it, you think about these things and these points that I'm about to make. So I've told you why thrifting and my story and why it's important to me. So now, why is it important to you? Well, we're all here in Lubbock, Texas. Whether you know it or not, Lubbock, Texas is the #1 for child abuse in the state of Texas. And we rank very high on the nation scale. On top of that, Texas has been in a foster care crisis for the past decade. That means since I went into the system is still broken to this day. Those adversities that I was facing, the scarcity of food, having to go without so my siblings could eat, having to dress other girls that way we didn't get bullied, these are things still happening. On top of that, kids are being placed in CPS offices to sleep on cots, not homes. So on top of that trauma, on top of being ripped from their homes and placed in front of unfamiliar and unknown people, they're being placed in a CPS office on a cot. This is because there's an overwhelming number of foster kids within Texas. Now, what is the core issue? There's always a core issue. That comes down to funding. There's too many kids and not enough money. Well, not to start talking politics, but at the end of the day, it comes down to that. Because as much as I can shed awareness and bring to light the issue, at the end of the day, it takes policies to be put into place in order to make direct change. That starts at the ground level. That starts with advocacy. That starts with us speaking up and coming together as a society and bringing it to light. Because obviously it hasn't been stressed enough because nothing has been changed. At the current moment, we are losing out on over $40 million between 2022 and 2023, all because Texas hasn't become compliant with the Family First Initiative program. This was put into place in 2018 by President Donald Trump, who initiated this act. Since 2018, we still haven't become compliant. We're still not receiving that funding, all because we haven't taken action. Nobody's speaking up. This group of individuals, these youth, this forgotten youth, they're so powerful and they're so strong. But at the end of the day, they don't have the voice that they need. Most of them feel sheltered. Most of them are scared to speak out because of feeling like they're going to face more bullying, or, most of the time when people think about foster kids, it's always a negative outlet. Oh, that must be a troubled youth, right? I wasn't adopted until the age of 17. I was adopted a few times before that and endured sexual abuse and was able to get out of that. And then at the age of 17, I struggled finding a family because they looked at me, at that time, a 15-year-old girl, and said, I can't take her into my home. She's probably troubled. She came out about sexual abuse. What if she lied? What if she tells them that my husband did that to her? These are the things that foster kids are going through. So of course they don't feel like they have a voice to speak up because most of the time they are shunned or they're looked down upon. But it's time for that to change. And that's what the Forgotten Youth hopes to do. Right now we're just an apparel line, but I hope for this to be a transitional piece for a nonprofit organization that I can fund through my apparel line to be able to help transitioning foster youth, spread advocacy, and promote awareness. So how are we doing that? Well, one of the things that we're doing, obviously, I'm doing some pop-up shops so that way I can spread the awareness and kind of get everybody going with some mimosas and shopping, lighten the mood before I kind of, throw a load on you. But we're also going out. I've reached out to Buckner organizations and all over Lubbock. That way I can start to mentor again the youth within our society. I'm also going to be co-authoring with an international best-selling author where I'm going to be sharing my story so that way I can provide a platform. Once the book sells, more people will become aware. I think that the problem right now is that too many people lack the knowledge of what's going on. If you're not going through it, at the end of the day, it's hard for you to understand what's actually happening. But I'm here today to tell you, I was there in those shoes. I made it through, but that was through a lot of help. And I hope for my voice to be the voice for the voiceless, because at the end of the day, these are stories that need to be told, and it's issues that need to be resolved. But that's not going to happen unless as a society we come together, we work together for that change. First step, November 8th, the primaries. It's time to get out and vote. I know it's not something that we like to talk about. Politics is not cheap anymore, but it is so important and vital. These are literally the children of tomorrow. This is our future generation we're talking about. And I promise you, they're not troubled youth. They may have issues that were not caused by their own hand. But at the end of the day, think about how powerful they can be if they were uplifted, empowered, and validated. They've got skill sets, they've got individuality, and they are their own person. And they've developed things that it takes most people years to come to terms with. If we could show them that they are powerful, that they are worthy, and that they're not just a troubled generation, they could come together, right, and uplift themselves and see that they are worth it. That's kind of what I hope to do with TFY Apparel. First, spread some awareness, advocate for some change, and show you guys my cool thrifted finds. So thank you guys so much for coming out. If you have any questions or if you'd like to share your stories, I'd love to hear them. Thank you.